Daniel Harper never thought a leaking pipe would test his marriage. When his wife Emily asked him to drive over to her mother's house on Saturday morning, he agreed without thinking much about it. Margaret Collins lived 20 minutes away, in a quiet Ohio neighborhood where the lawns were trimmed and the streets were calm. Since her husband passed away 3 years earlier, small problems in the house often felt bigger than they were. A dripping kitchen sink had become one of those problems. Daniel loaded his toolbox into his truck just after sunrise. The air was cool, and the sky was pale blue. He expected a simple repair, maybe an hour of work. He did not expect the strange shift that would follow him home. Margaret opened the door before he could knock twice. She wore a soft gray sweater and gave him a warm smile that felt grateful and relieved at the same time. "Daniel, thank you for coming so quickly," she said. "Of course," he replied. "It's just a leak." Inside, the house felt neat and still. Family photos lined the hallway Emily as a teenager, school portraits, old holiday dinners. Daniel noticed how many frames held memories from years ago. Nothing recent, nothing new. Margaret led him to the kitchen. The steady drip from under the sink filled the quiet room. It wasn't loud, but in the silence of the house, it sounded constant, almost sharp. Daniel knelt down, opened the cabinet, and examined the pipes. The joint was loose. A small crack in one of the older fittings had caused the leak. It was an easy fix. As he worked, Margaret stood nearby. At first she spoke about small things: the weather, a neighbor's new dog, the rising cost of groceries. Daniel answered politely, tightening bolts, replacing the worn connector. Then the conversation shifted. "It's strange," Margaret said softly, leaning against the counter. "The house feels bigger these days." Daniel glanced up briefly. Big houses can feel empty. She gave a small laugh. "Yes, empty." He returned to his work, but her tone stayed with him. It wasn't dramatic. It was honest. He understood. That kind of honesty. He had been feeling something similar at home, though he rarely said it out loud. He and Emily had once filled their evenings with long talks and shared plans. Now they mostly filled them with silence. She worked late at the marketing firm in Columbus. He spent extra hours at the construction company. When they were home together, they were tired. Conversations became short. Smiles became rare. "Emily's been busy?" Margaret asked casually. "Yeah," Daniel said. "Work's been heavy." "She doesn't talk much when she visits," Margaret added, her voice careful. Daniel paused. "She's just stressed." Margaret nodded, but her eyes showed concern. "You seem stressed too." The comment surprised him. No one had said that before. He usually played the steady role, the dependable husband. The problem solver. He tightened the final fitting and turned the water back on. The leak stopped. The sink ran smoothly. "There," he said, standing up, "good as new." Margaret clapped lightly, her smile bright. "You always fix things." Her words sounded simple, but something in them felt heavier. As if she meant more than the pipe. She insisted he sit down for coffee before leaving. Daniel hesitated for a moment but agreed. It felt rude to refuse. They sat at this small wooden kitchen table where sunlight streamed through the curtains. Margaret poured coffee into 2 white mugs. "I don't get much company," she admitted. "Most days it's just me and the television." Daniel nodded. "That must be hard." "It's different," she said. "When someone's gone, the house remembers them. Every room does." Daniel understood that in his own way. Sometimes he felt like his marriage remembered what it used to be. The laughter, the closeness. Now the rooms of his home felt careful, as if both he and Emily were trying not to step on something fragile. "You and Emily used to sit right there," Margaret said, pointing to the living room. "You two would argue over movies and laugh about it." Daniel smiled faintly. "We were younger." "You still are," she replied. "Don't let time convince you otherwise." He looked down at his coffee. He didn't know how to respond. Margaret studied him for a moment. "Are you happy, Daniel?" The question came gently, without judgment. but it struck hard. He opened his mouth, then closed it. He had not asked himself that question in a long time. "I guess," he said. Finally, life just gets busy. Busy can hide a lot, she said. Silence settled between them, not uncomfortable, but thoughtful. Daniel realized how rare it felt to sit across from someone who seemed to truly see him. When he stood to leave, Margaret walked him to the door. As he reached for his keys, she touched his arm lightly. "Thank you," she said. "Not just for the repair." Her hand rested there only for a second, but it felt warm through his sleeve. Daniel nodded quickly and stepped outside. The drive home felt longer than usual. He kept replaying the morning in his head. Nothing inappropriate had happened. Were no crossed lines, just conversation, just kindness. Yet he felt unsettled. When he arrived home, Emily sat on the couch scrolling through her phone. The television played softly in the background, all fixed. She asked without looking up. "Yeah," Daniel said, setting his toolbox down. "Good, that was it." He stood there for a moment, waiting for more. Maybe a thank you. Maybe a question about how her mother was doing. But the room stayed quiet. He sat beside her. "Your mom seems lonely." Emily sighed. "She's always been dramatic. She just misses Dad." "We all do," Emily replied, her tone sharper. "Now, but we can't live in the past." Daniel nodded, but something about the way Margaret had spoken didn't feel dramatic. It felt real. That night, as they lay in bed, Emily turned her back to him quickly. Within minutes, her breathing slowed into sleep. Daniel stared at the ceiling. He wasn't angry. He wasn't even blaming her. He just felt distant. He thought about Margaret's question, "Are you happy?" He had built his life on responsibility, on doing the right thing, on fixing what was broken. But what if some things couldn't be tightened with a wrench? A week passed. Work kept him busy. Emily worked late almost every evening. Their conversations stayed practical. Groceries, laundry, bills. Then his phone rang on Thursday afternoon. It was Margaret. "Daniel, I'm sorry to bother you again," she said. "The bathroom sink is acting up now." "I wouldn't ask, but you know how these things are." He hesitated. He could call a plumber for her. He could suggest it. But instead he heard himself say, "I'll come by Saturday." After hanging up, he stared at his phone longer than necessary. He told himself it was just another repair. Nothing more. But deep down, he knew this visit would not feel as simple as the first. And somewhere beneath the calm surface of everyday life, a small crack had already begun to form.